นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมาสามิ Good evening, everybody. Been invited to give you some teachings on Buddhism, particularly aimed at finding ways to experience more peace and happiness in our lives. I've actually just come from Thailand today. I attended a funeral yesterday of a teacher who visited this temple many times, Luang Po Pong, who died last year, and a well-loved and respected teacher both in Thailand and around the world. In the later years of his life, he travelled extensively to teach Buddhism, meditation, as I said, all over the world. And so yesterday, the funeral that took place in his monastery in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, was attended by many, many thousands of monks, nuns and lay people, all expressing their gratitude for somebody who lived his life very well as a Buddhist monk, not only learned how to pacify his own mind through the practice of the Buddhist teachings and experience great happiness and peace, but also used up a lot of energy to teach others how to practice what the Buddha taught. So it was an expression of gratitude. People came together. There was a cremation last night, overnight, and then this morning they collected the bones of the teacher. And the Buddhist cremation it's a meditation in itself, it's a teaching. But there's a person, a monk or a nun or a lay person who you might have known for many years and respect as a wise and peaceful person, then they pass away and then you cremate them and all you've got left is bones and ashes. It's teaching you in a very direct way about the impermanence of life. We don't last forever. The things of this world don't last forever. We all have a time frame for our life. We have a lifespan. We don't know when we'll die, but we do know we will die for sure. So going through that process of performing a cremation for a well-loved and respected teacher, it brings it home. It's a very direct teaching. And that was in line, I think, with how he lived his life. Ajahn Kalyano was somebody who was very direct in his teachings. And there was one time in Australia, where I live, he gave a Dhamma talk on occasion like this in the monastery, and 3 young men came to sit at the back listening to the talk, and Luang Po gave a talk about how to live a good life and create the causes for peace and happiness to arise in your mind. But at the end of the talk, these 3 young men stayed on and asked, Luang Po, we've heard the talk, but can you now teach us how to fly? Which is not an unusual thing for people who are not Buddhists, not brought up as Buddhists. They often think that Buddhist monks have the duty to teach others how to fly. Luang Por Chah did have that reputation. He had very amazing skills of his mind with samadhi, and is known to have been able to develop great psychic powers as well as great compassion and wisdom. So perhaps that's partly what attracted those three young men to ask the question. But Luang Por didn't answer in the way they expected. He said, I can't teach you to fly, but I can teach you how to free your mind from suffering. But unfortunately they weren't interested in that and they left. And that's often the way of people in the world. We're looking for more short-term kinds of excitement, interest, happiness. The more important issue of how to live our lives to be peaceful and happy and free ourselves from stress and suffering, we often overlook or ignore. Or sometimes we're just looking in the wrong place. Maybe we think if we can fly, somehow that will make our life better. Luang Por and many teachers from the Thai forest tradition, and you're lucky that many of them come to teach here and share their wisdom with you. I think he would agree that really what we have to do is to find real peace and happiness in our life, is learn how to turn our attention back to ourselves and look at what is causing us stress and suffering. And simply speaking, the Buddha encouraged us to look at where we're clinging or where we're attached. Where we cling, where our mind clings, is where suffering will arise. What do we cling to? Well, the Buddha said we cling to this body and mind, and the way the Buddha talked about the body and mind, he talked about body and mind as the 5 khandhas, 5 aggregates, 5 bundles. So he grouped human experience into these 5 areas. There's the physical form, the body, we've all got one sitting here. We have feelings, it's feelings of pleasure and pain. We have perceptions, the way we remember and label our experience. And we have what we call mental formations, thought formations, the sankhara group of experience, and that's the most active part of our mind. We're always thinking, wanting things, planning things. It's where we make our karma through intention. We have intentional thought. And then we have vijnana, consciousness, sense consciousness. We can see, hear, taste, smell, touch. And our mind is conscious as well. We can think, have ideas and concepts. So the Buddha said we cling to these 5 groups of experience with a sense of self. He said, this is me, this is who I am. So this is my body, my feeling, my pleasure or pain, my memory, my soul. Or I am seeing, I am hearing, and so on. And as if spreading out from this sense of self that forms around this body, this sense of me or ego, we sometimes use the word ego, spreading out from that, then we cling to many external things as well, based on this sense of self, who I am. So we have our material possessions, our family, friends, our job, our country, all kinds of things that we identify with or cling to. And this process of clinging, the Buddha said, comes from not seeing, not understanding the truth. We misunderstand and cling to things as me and mine, belonging to me. And this is where our suffering comes from. Because if you cling to something that is really not yours and is not a self, then you'll suffer, because very soon you'll notice that the thing you're clinging to as I or mine doesn't listen to you, doesn't do what you want, can't control it, can't make it do what you want, so you suffer. For example, nobody wants to die, but eventually we have to die. It's perhaps the most powerful kind of suffering a human will experience is the threat or the fear of death. But before that happens, we have illness, we have aging, we have aches and pains. As I'm talking now, some of you will experience some aches and pains in your legs. Maybe the weather is too hot or too cold, or a mosquito comes to bite you. This will bring up at least a small amount of stress or suffering, just based around this body and the sense of identification with the body as me, mine, myself. And then the mental side of our experience. Every day you will have certain thoughts, emotions, feelings come up that don't agree with us. And as long as we identify with them, we suffer. So sometimes we're stressed, we say, I'm stressed. We have stressful thinking, maybe to do with our family, or money problems, or relationship problems, or health problems, or job problems. And we think about these things and we identify with the thoughts, and then we start to feel stressed. On and on it goes. So the Buddha sometimes compared the human being, these 5 bundles or groups of experience, to like a house on fire. We're actually clinging to a house on fire. Why would you do that? If a house is on fire, you try and get out. But most of the people in the world are not trying to get out. They're not trying to see beyond their clinging or understand where it comes from or what to do about it. At best, we're trying to get these short-stop fixes for our problems. We like to feel in control in any way we can in our life. So we try to set up our accommodation where we live just the way we want. We choose our friends, we have families, we try to earn money so that we can have convenience and comfort. And we try our best to control our world. But if we're honest and start looking, we're not very successful at it. So it's like a house on fire. We're living in a house on fire, but only a few people seem to realize that and look for a way out. Often we actually seem to accept that the house on fire the house on fire is our lot. It's what we've got, and I'll just put up with it because we don't know any better. Fair enough. But we're lucky in the sense all of you here have come into contact with the Buddhist teachings. You've met living teachers as well as hearing the words of the Buddha. So you've had the chance to maybe wake up a bit and realize that the house is on fire. I should do something about it. I shouldn't just take things for granted or just carry on without looking more deeply into my life and look more closely at where I can find happiness and what I must do to let go of my stress and my suffering. A bit like a man who lived near our monastery in Australia a while ago. His house caught fire and he was asleep in the bedroom at 1 a.m. and nobody knew he was there, so the neighbours saw that the house was on fire and the whole house was on fire, engulfed in flames, but nobody realised he was inside. They assumed he'd already left, so they called the fire brigade and the people were coming, putting out the fire. Meanwhile, he was asleep in bed while his house was burning, but he had a very loyal cat, and the cat ran into that burning house, much to the shock of the gathered people trying to put out the fire, ran into his bedroom and sat on his face and clawed his face until the man woke up. Then he did realise his house was on fire and rushed out together with the cat. And so the cat saved his life. But life is like that. Often when things are burning around us, things are going wrong, we're suffering, and we don't really look for any way out of it. But we are lucky that we've heard the Buddhist teachings that point to this problem we have as human beings. And monks and nuns and other teachers will come and they'll remind you. And often people don't like to hear this reminder. Some people don't like to hear the Buddhist teachings because it's pointing to the truth, a reality which is at first a bit painful, a bit uncomfortable for us. If the Buddha says, you are not what you think you are, you don't own this body, this mind, these things are not really you, that doesn't sound very promising. It's going against the stream of society, isn't it? Society is saying, you've got to be the best, you've got to be the top, you've got to do this, you've got to be somebody. From day one, we're born, we're brought up with love and kindness from our families, but the sense of self is being nurtured and encouraged from day one. Sometimes they bring little babies to be blessed in our monastery. I'm the teacher, so I have to do the baby blessing. And they want me to give the baby a name. The baby's just a few days old, and they say, can you name the baby? I'm a bit cautious about that because I know this is starting off this process of this identifying with a sense of self. And once you've got a name, then you've got something, haven't you? You've got a name, that's who you are. Even a name, we identify with it quite strongly. Some people after a while, they've been brought up with a certain name, after a while they get fed up with it. Maybe they have a few bad experiences and they associate their name with those bad experiences, so they say, I want a new name, so they change the name. Or maybe they're like me, after a while they become a Buddhist monk. When you become a Buddhist monk, you give up your lay name, you take on a Pali name. As it were, a new person to them. They called me Kalyano Bhikkhu. So when I was 21, I became Kalyano, got a new name. But as soon as we're brought into the world, our parents or a monk will give us a name, and this sense of self-identity begins, doesn't it? You've got your gender, so you'll be identifying generally, you identify with your gender, your parents, where you live. So if you're in Singapore, you're brought up feeling I'm a Singaporean, and we become patriotic maybe. We go to a certain school, identify with our school, this is who I am, where I go to school. Later on when you might get a job, identify with that. On and on it goes. The sense of self-identity begins and carries on. But then the Buddha said, but this is like a house on fire, this thing you're identifying with. Nobody is telling you that. Hopefully they do tell you this. Hopefully your parents bring you to talks like this. When you're a kid, bring your kids so they can hear some Dhamma, or at least introduce them to the concept of the fact that maybe this self-identity is not quite accurate or not quite correct. We do actually do this. Like Buddhists usually teach their kids and teach each other to practice generosity and compassion in daily life. Why is that? Because it's challenging this sense of self. If you practice generosity with following the teachings of the Buddha, you're not simply practicing it because it's a good thing to help other people, which it is, of course it is, but you're also practicing to let go of some of your clinging. So if you practice charity or make a donation, or you go and do some volunteering or something, you're giving up, sacrificing some of your sense of self on to give something away, or you go and help somebody. And if you do that mindfully and with full awareness, this is the beginning of the Buddhist path of seeing the pain that comes from selfishness and identity and starting to let it go or go against that habit. So I'm sure all of you practice generosity from time to time in different ways, but this is something we can consciously do, is practice letting go of the sense of self as we engage with the world around us, share the things we have, share our knowledge, share our time. This is already taking one step out of the house that's on fire. You're saying life isn't just about me, there's also other people around who may be worse off than me or need my help, or maybe there's some good causes that I can support. You're letting go of a bit of self when you do that. So here at this Buddhist temple, you see every day people making self-sacrifice. They sacrifice their time to organize things. In so many different ways people sacrifice in Buddhist temples. They're not the only place people sacrifice their sense of self, but it's a very good place for that. Whenever there's an event, people come, they organize food for Sangha and for visitors. We do different projects, charity projects, and so on. All kinds of good works go on in a place like this. All of this is, if it's done properly, with following the Buddha's words and the guidelines of the Buddha, it's all done to help you let go of some of this sense of self. Just become more aware as you practice generosity. Are you doing that? Sometimes you'll notice when you're doing an act of charity or kindness towards another, or doing some donation or something, often the sense of self will come up and come into that action, won't it? So sometimes it will come in the form of comparing with others, or even competing with others. So you look at what they've done, and then you look back at yourself, and you think, oh, I didn't do as much as them. Maybe on a material basis you're feeling a little bit shy or embarrassed, because you think, oh, they did so much, I did so little. Maybe the sense of self comes in there. Or maybe it comes in with, I did so much, they did so little. We become more conceited or arrogant sometimes in the generosity we practice. Sometimes we want to make a big show of, or big display of our generosity. The sense of self comes in. We're not content just to do the act of generosity, but we have to tell the world about it. So put it on Facebook, ring everyone up, or tell our WhatsApp group, or whatever way you connect with other people. We somehow want to add on this sense of self to the good act we've done. So in Thailand, where I used to be as a monk, we have a phrase, a saying, sticking gold leaf on the back of the Buddha. It's a way of developing this attitude of when you practice generosity, you're also letting go, sacrificing your sense of self. So you don't have to promote your ego or sense of self as you practice generosity. So sticking gold leaf on the back of the Buddha, what it means is, say you have a Buddha statue, and in Thailand they love to cover the statue with gold leaf. People often, they purchase a little bit of gold leaf, and then they go up to the Buddha, and everybody wants to stick the gold leaf on the face or the front part of the Buddha. Then they can see that bit of gold leaf every time they come to that statue. They're sure they have faith, they're doing a good thing, but they want everyone to know their bit of gold is there, and they want to see it and remember it. So there's that sense of ego involved with the generosity. So we're often encouraged to put the gold leaf on the back of the Buddha, where nobody will ever see it. You go round the back, you stick a bit of gold leaf on. Nobody ever goes round the back of the statue. Right? I bet anyone sitting here has never been round the back of that statue. Have a look. So sticking gold leaf on the back of the statue, what it means is letting go of the ego as you practice good, doing something good. It's a very good teaching. There's a famous picture of the Thai king, the last king rather than ninth, sticking gold leaf on the back of a Buddha. And he encouraged that kind of attitude in life. The true generosity or charity we do is to be done for letting go of ego, letting go of attachment to self. You have to bear that in mind when you do these acts. It doesn't matter whether you're doing something very grand or very humble, very big, very small. That's not so important. The important thing is, are you letting go of self? Because that's a step out of the house that is on fire. So the more you can let go of self as you practice acts of kindness, generosity in daily life, the cooler your heart feels. The word that sometimes is quenching, like you quench a fire with water. When you let go of yourself, even a little bit of self, it's like you're quenching your heart, your mind, you feel better. So Ajahn Chah used to talk about the little schoolgirl who was practicing generosity, and she had a packed lunch. She went to school, her mum gave her a packed lunch every day, and this girl loved apples. So her mum often would give her an apple to eat for lunch. In this day, she opened up her lunch pack and she found 2 apples. And she thought, maybe I should practice some generosity today. I should give one of these apples away. But one apple was a big one and one was a small one. So she thought, well, I'll give the small one away. Of course, most people think like that. But then she had a second thought, but maybe I should give away the big one. I'll still have an apple and I'll make someone else happier, let go of some of my attachment to apples because I really like apples. And then she's having a little battle in her mind. Big apple, big apple, big apple, big apple. Should I, shouldn't I? And I'm sure you've had this experience where you've had an opportunity to help someone or do something good, and it just brings up a little struggle in your mind. Should I, shouldn't I? Give the big one, give the small one? But this battle is a very important battle. It's a battle over ego, over self. In this respect, maybe the self is coming up in the form of greed. I like apples. So you think, okay, getting the apple, the big one, I'll enjoy it. But if I can give it away and just take the small one, I'll be better off because I'll reduce my sense of greed and attachment in that moment, in that experience. So the girl gives the big one to her friend and keeps the small one. So it's not like she's got nothing, she's still got the apple, but it's the smaller one. How does it feel? So the little girl feels very happy. She's done something good, given her friend the apple and given the biggest one as well. So it's a new kind of feeling of happiness. It's the feeling of letting go of self. So the Buddha said this is like quenching that heat, the fire of our attachment to this body, this mind, this self. The house on fire. It's like putting a hose onto the fire. The fire may come back later, but at least for that moment it's been quenched. And a lot of our practice is like that, especially on the level of generosity. Just small moments of kindness in the family, in the workplace, in the temple, in society, it doesn't matter. If you're practicing following the Buddhist teachings, you're letting go of self as you do this. And those small moments may add up to something much bigger. Sometimes people think the only way you can practice Buddhism is to be in the temple, become a monk or a nun. Everyone else can't do it, which is not true at all. Of course, we practice wherever we are, whatever life situation we are in. And we shouldn't overlook the small opportunities to practice generosity, kindness, and not even see it as a kind of second-rate practice that only kind of half-hearted Buddhists do, or they practice generosity but they don't really understand about letting go of self. If you practice generosity with the right attitude, with mindfulness and with understanding, it can be a very fulfilling practice and very successful in counteracting this attachment to self. So the Buddha encourages us to practice regularly, every day, in small ways or bigger ways, in the temple, at home, wherever. Practice generosity, practice kindness, and practice for letting go of self. You'll feel a lot happier as you do this. It gives you good memories, and it gives you this inner warmth and happiness that comes from letting go. But it's not the complete practice, it's the beginning, it's a step in the right direction, a step out of the burning house. So the Buddha encourages us to also practice living in a virtuous way. We say keeping precepts, living in a moral way where through our speech, our actions, we're not harming others. Again, to be done with the knowledge that I'm letting go of some self as I keep the precepts. So how do we do that? Well, for instance, tonight we're sitting here, maybe there's a few mosquitoes or other insects around. You might decide I'm keeping the first precept, non-aggression, non-killing, not harming any living creature. That's an intention that you take up. I'm going to have this intention, I'm going to stick with this intention not to harm. So when you're provoked or challenged in a situation, the mosquito comes, it lands on you. You may have the thought to harm it, squash it, kill it. But now you're letting go of that intention to squash it, harm it, kill it, and developing the intention to preserve life, to be respectful of life, to be compassionate, tolerant. This is also letting go of self, isn't it? When you live in a virtuous way, or a moral way. And from mosquitoes we can move on to people, because people often provoke us, bully us, cause us trouble. Oh, we practice with them as well. And so it goes on with the practice of virtue. We base our practice of virtue around the 5 precepts. Refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying and abusive speech, and refraining from taking drink or drugs that cloud the mind, take away our mindfulness. These are trainings, intentional action to live in a virtuous way, a way that we're not harming ourselves, harming others, but also letting go of self. So how do you do that? Well, maybe you're in a situation where you're tempted to follow a certain more negative, more aggressive, or more dishonest course of actions. I mean, you're tempted to steal, or you're tempted to swear or insult someone in a situation. But now you're setting your mind on letting go of this attachment to self, because you can see it causes you stress, causes you suffering. So at that moment you're tempted to steal or insult someone, your awareness comes up and says, no, I'm not going to do that. And again, there might be a little struggle there, just like the girl with the apples, but now it's a struggle, should I say it or not? And think about it, how many times in your life have you regretted something that you said when you were very angry, or in a very selfish mood, or in a very unhappy mood, that led you to say something or do something that later you regretted. So now, based on that understanding, you're saying, oh, I shouldn't do that. This is going to cause me suffering, cause other people suffering. And you determine to be strong, patient with the situation, and not give in to that desire to harm, insult, steal, whatever it is. You're letting go of some self there. You might say letting go of the bad self, or letting go of attachment to self if you're going to do that. You have to not give in to that pressure that says, I want to insult them, argue with them, I want to steal something that isn't mine. It can be quite there can be many situations that are quite challenging, but to do it, you're letting go of some self. When you come to the monastery, it's usually easy to do this, isn't it? You're on your best behaviour. Everybody watches what they say, what they do, which is good. Where you have to be stronger and more vigilant, more careful when you go home again afterwards, isn't it? How many people have left the monastery and within a few hours are already having an argument with someone, getting angry with someone, told a lie? Maybe worse than that. When I first started meditating, I was a student. I'd go to a meditation group, similar sort of number of people like this, and we meditate for an hour, and it was a very good group, very harmonious, good atmosphere, good teacher. But I noticed at the end of the meditation session, because everyone was young and students, most of them would go next door into the bar have a few drinks. This is not working. Well, I used to follow them start with, and after a while, I can't do this. If I'm meditating to clear my mind, what's the point of going to drink? So I stop drinking. But often it's like this, isn't it? In the monastery, we try very hard, we're mindful, careful, things go well, then we go home and things start to slip. The sense of self comes in again, doesn't it? The attachment to old habits, old ways that we identify with, various fears. Often we do things that are less virtuous out of fear, don't we? We often tell a lie out of fear. People steal out of fear, and fear they don't have enough money or don't have enough comfort. People are driven often by fears and different kinds of attachments, which is exactly what you're dealing with. So keeping precepts, living in a virtuous way, is more challenging than practicing generosity. You have to invest more effort, more time, more restraint. You have to try harder, basically. Which is sometimes a problem, as we know, because in our society we're pressured by many things. We've got to earn money, we've got to look after the family, we've got to earn money, pay the bills, keep up with everyone else. A lot of pressure. So when we realize to keep precepts also requires some effort, and there's some pressures involved, we don't like that thought. The monk told me I have to keep the 5 precepts and live virtuously. It's just making my life harder. Some people think like that, they feel like that. They think Buddhism is just making more problems, giving us more things to do. But you have to really sit down and think it through, don't you? Why did the Buddha encourage us to keep the 5 precepts and live in a moral, virtuous way? It's out of compassion, it's understanding why we suffer as human beings. And a lot of our suffering comes because we follow our greed, follow our anger, and it leads us to harm ourselves sometimes, harm others, or often harm both. You notice when people do act in selfless ways with their behavior, it's very refreshing, it's very inspiring. When you see people who are honest, you always feel good about that. Oh, they're so honest. When people speak in a way they're not abusing others, their words are kind, truthful, helpful, it's inspiring, it's helpful. When people are sober, they're not drunk, they're not out of their minds, it's inspiring, it's helpful, it gives us a good example. You have to think about this as well. Think about the benefits that come when we do let go of some of our coarser sense of self, attachment to the greed, the selfishness, the anger that might lead us into breaking precepts. When we manage to let go of that, keep the precepts, good things happen. We experience a higher kind of happiness, a better kind of happiness. But it takes effort. We have to be strong, committed, patient, and keep working at it. But just ask yourself, why do some of these great teachers who come here, like Buddhism or many of the other teachers you've met, why are they happy? Why do they seem peaceful, happy in themselves? Why are they kind of at ease in themselves? One of the main reasons is because they live in a virtuous way. They've trained themselves to give up the habit of stealing, lying, killing things, hurting things. They don't drink, take drugs. They're celibate, or at least if it's a lay teacher, they don't break the 3rd precept. People like this, they're peaceful and happy because of it, because they live in a virtuous way, a moral way. That's something worth thinking about. And they've trained themselves to let go of the coarser kinds of self that we attach to. Why do we harm other people? Because we're attached to our own pride, ego, competitiveness. That kind of motivation leads us to clash with other people all the time. So sometimes maybe try going the other way, or if you're doing it, just keep on doing it. And practice the generosity, the forgiveness. Sometimes people are so caught up in the way of the world, where we have to compete and struggle and fight with others, they forget very basic things. Like somebody came to our monastery a while ago, and they're having a problem with someone at work. They're always competing with this person for space, time, to see who could be in charge in the office. And this other person was giving them a lot of problems, making them very angry. And so they're looking for advice, what to do to deal with this situation. And I said, have you tried forgiveness? Every situation is different, but in this situation, have you tried forgiveness? No, never thought of that. It's almost like forgiveness, no, that's very old-fashioned, or that's what kids do at school when they have problems. It's not what adults do, is it? We don't forgive. If you forgive, you're weak. You won't get on, people will walk all over you, whatever it is. Our mind, our ego, our attachment will have all kinds of excuses. But sometimes you just have to, try it. Try forgiveness. What's it like? Oh, feels good, doesn't it? So if you forgive, what are you doing? You're letting go of another bit of self. You're letting go of your anger towards another person. Sometimes it's self-forgiveness. If you're very self-critical and upset with yourself, you might have to forgive yourself. Sometimes it's for another person. Just try it. Try forgiveness. And what does it do to your mind? You usually feel better because you're letting go of some anger, letting go of that self that is identified with the anger as who you are. You're saying, no, I don't have to be that person, I can let it go. Just try it. It's not always easy, of course, but what the Buddha was encouraging us to do was look at better ways, or more profound ways, you could say, to find inner peace, inner happiness. So sometimes we have to be brave, courageous, try things, even things that seem very ordinary, actually put them into practice in your life. On the deepest level, the practice of letting go of self, letting go of this self-identity, body and mind, these five bundles of experience that we call the five aggregates. On the deepest level, we do it through the practice of meditation, just as we were doing earlier this evening with the breath meditation. Why do we develop the skills of meditation? To develop this ability to pay attention to the body and mind, improve our, you could say, self-awareness, or just awareness, mindfulness, and understanding of the way things are. So the main practices in Buddhist meditation are the practice of development of calm, just learning to calm the mind, center our attention in the present moment using different techniques. So one universal technique is the breath meditation, just learning to pay attention to the breath as a way to let go of distraction, overcome sleepiness, overcome some of the more negative emotions that can bother us throughout our day, to be able to sit comfortably with oneself for a period of time without even giving into the need to go somewhere or do something else, so just to be at peace with oneself. So learning to experience calm, peace of mind in the present moment, in a very clear, obvious way, because a lot of us haven't had that much in our life. So again, it's something that you have to try, put effort into practicing meditation, but you can begin in a very simple way like we did just now, just 10-15 minutes a day. You pick a time where you're free, you don't have any other business or other issues, other things bothering you. Let the people who you live with or around you know this is my meditation time. You pick a quiet place. That can just be a corner of a room or a seat. Could even be in a car, in a lunch break. Could be anywhere that you can just sit quietly on your own for 10-15 minutes and train yourself to pay attention to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out, letting go of all the other distractions, and improving your level of mindfulness. This quality of just present moment awareness, which we lack so much of in life, but brings us so much calm and happiness. And the main reason why we need to develop more calm is because it helps us to see our own body and mind more clearly the way it is. We say in an objective way, a way where we're unbiased, we're not adding anything onto our experience. We're just looking at this body, the mind, feelings, thoughts, memories, looking at them as they are. To do that, you have to have a sense of well-being that comes from living in a virtuous way, keeping the precepts, and then a sense of calm that comes from developing mindfulness on an object. Meditation. So you practice meditation regularly. Of course, as you do this, you'll be also letting go of this sense of self. What do you do when you meditate? You're letting go of various distracting thoughts, things, moods coming up, feelings in your body, feelings in your mind, different emotions, memories popping up into your mind, all the different mental things that tend to distract us and just keep our mind moving from thought to thought, moment to moment. We're learning to let go of that and center the mind on one thing. So in this case, I'm talking about the breath. Learning to gather all our mental energy in one place, tip of the nostrils, with one thing, one feeling, the breath, and letting go of everything else. So if thoughts come up, fine, you just note them and let them go. Hear sounds, cars, other things out there, you notice the sound when you let it go. You remember what happened yesterday at work, somebody said something, you have that memory pop up, and then you let it go. Or the thought, what am I going to do tomorrow, where am I going, what do I have to do? You note the thought, but then you let it go. You don't cling on to your thoughts, your memories, the feelings coming up. You notice them where you let them go. So, practicing meditation, you're practicing not clinging or letting go in a very direct way now, with your own body and mind, to sit still like this as we are, not move around much. You have to let go, don't you? Maybe part of your mind is saying, I want to go somewhere else and do something else. You have that thought come up. Maybe you have some pain in your body at this moment. But if you're mindful enough just to keep sitting like this, that means you're able to let go of self. The very thing the Buddha said is causing us stress in our life. You're letting go of self. When you practice mindfulness of breathing, you're sitting still, you're putting attention on the breath, you're letting go of things, aren't you? All the other desires and things you want to do at this time, you have to let go of it. So if you practice that regularly, you get better at it. As you get better at it, you experience more inner calm, inner peace, inner happiness, which is good. Everybody wants that. And this inner calm, inner peace helps us to see ever more clearly our own mind, our own body as it is. And this is very important because even the sense of calm and relaxed awareness you're getting from meditation, this sense of self we've got is so tricky, even then it will jump onto the sense of peace and calm and say, that's me, that's who I am. I'm happy, I'm peaceful. Even that can be a problem. So sometimes meditators have a lot of stress because yesterday I meditated and I felt really peaceful, I was so happy, and today I can't do it. Today I've got no peace at all. And so even people practicing meditation have this experience of self, we call it the yo-yo self, yo-yo up and down like yo-yo. So maybe you go to work and your boss praises you up, then the boss criticizes you down. You come home and you say, oh, so much stress with work, now I'm going to meditate. Then you have a peaceful meditation, so you go up and you're very happy, and then you have a meditation where your mind is so disturbed, not peaceful at all, you go down. So this dynamic is flowing through our life. It's all because of this sense of self, attaching to the mind, the feelings, what's going on as me, mine, myself. So even meditation, we have to work with this, but you might say it's on a more refined level than the more coarse, the ordinary sort of experiences we have. Anyway, we have to press on. We can't give in just because we have a bit of attachment come up when we have some peaceful meditation. We have to contemplate, reflect on our experience. And this is the other part of meditation, developing insight, wisdom into our experience of this body and mind, but using the calm that we develop as a kind of a base or a platform to help us look back at our own experience. Because when you're calm, then you can see things clearer, can't you? It's like, say, like just now we're going down the road before it was dark, and you get advertising sometimes on those kind of plastic sheets that they tie up, and then when the wind's blowing you can't read the words very well because it's moving. When the wind stops you can read everything and see what they're advertising. Our mind is like that. When it's moving you can't see what's going on very well. It's agitated, disturbed, so you need to calm down, then you can see your mind better. What do you see? Well, you start to see some of the things the Buddha pointed to. He said, look at these three things we call the universal characteristics of existence. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca, dukkha, anatta means impermanence or change, the changing nature of our body and mind and this world. Dukkha, the unsatisfactory or even painful nature of things. And anatta, the lack of self or lack of ego in experience. These are three areas, three signs, three characteristics of our experience. The Buddha said, look at them very closely, often, over and over again. And to do that, you need the mind that is calm, mindful, peaceful, established in that. Then you can look very well. Sometimes they talk about the practice of Buddhism as the study and practice of Buddhism. And people, when you say the word study, they think that must mean reading a lot of books. And it can do, and there's a lot that you can read and listen to and read and a lot of information to gather. But really what the Buddha was pointing to was study this body and this mind as it is in the present moment every day. That's really the place of study. Study your body and mind and look at what's happening. So you're developing this skill, the calm, peaceful mind, looking back and saying, what's it like, what's happening? You start to notice various truths, and you notice your thoughts come and go, they arise, they pass away. Feelings, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, they come and go. Memories change, perceptions, our perception of who we are, of the world, and all the things we like, dislike around the world, they change. Our views, our opinions change. They're all a little bit unreliable when you look at them closely. The body is unreliable. Who can stop themselves getting older every day? We get hungry, we get hot, cold, thirsty, we get ill, we get sick, we get injured, and eventually we're going to get so old and things are going to go wrong, we're going to die. So the body's not very reliable. So these five aggregates or groups of experience, the Buddha said, look at them over and over again, using the calm state of mind, what we call samadhi, the mind of calm, peace, stillness, and we'll start to understand what the Buddha understood. This body and mind that I identify with as me, myself, is not very reliable, it's not certain. The one thing that is certain is the insight, the knowledge you get from this practice. That becomes your real refuge, something that you can rely on. The fact that you know that everything else is unreliable. Kind of sounds a bit strange at first, but it's the way the mind develops. You become clearer and brighter in your mind. You understand everything that is subject to change is, we say, dukkha, it's unsatisfactory. Therefore, I shouldn't cling to it as self, because it's unsatisfactory, it'll bring me pain, it's on fire. So the Buddha said, if you cling to sights, you see things that you like, you dislike, you cling to them as self, those sights, and that experience of seeing, you cling to that as self, you suffer, you're burnt. Taste, touch, sounds, even just ideas in your mind, if you cling to them as self, you get burned, you get suffering. So the more you practice developing mindfulness, calm, peaceful awareness in your meditation, the more you're noticing that. So you develop this understanding, I shouldn't cling, it's suffering. It's not just like a statement, I shouldn't cling, it's actually knowledge in your mind, it's intuitive understanding, oh, where I cling is going to suffer. There'll be suffering, so I'm not going to cling anymore. So then people start to think, well, if I don't cling, then I might as well just give up on life, not do anything, I'll just be like a vegetable sitting here, or a rock or something. It's not that. This non-clinging is something you do internally. It comes with calm and insight that sees, well, to cling is suffering, therefore I'll not cling. But you still go to work in the morning if you have a job. You still look after your family if you have a family. If you're a monk, you still live in the forest, do the things that you do. Doesn't mean to say you give up on life or life has no meaning. What it is, it's an insight that's saying don't cling to things because it will bring you suffering. So as you look after your family, you know, oh, I have to look after my family, be responsible, help them, but ultimately I can't cling to them because I don't own them. You don't own your kids, your husband, your wife, your parents. You have to separate through death. You don't own your wealth. We say we do on the outside. I buy this house, this car, work so hard, save my money. But that's just superficial, isn't it? It's just nominal. In reality, you shouldn't cling to those things because you can't take them with you. So you still look after your car, you look after your house, but you know in your heart, I don't own this, I can't take this with me. It's that kind of understanding. It's an internal one. It's not giving up on life. It's just understanding better that where I cling, I'll suffer. There was one time there was a man, a cow herder, going through the forest looking for his cows. He lost his cows, if I remember correctly. He met the Buddha sitting under a tree meditating, and the guy came up to the Buddha and said, have you seen any cows? I've lost my cows. And he was very stressed because he's lost his cows, and his cows were everything to him, his livelihood, everything. So he's very stressed about it. The Buddha didn't answer him immediately with, yes, I've seen them, or no, I haven't. The Buddha answered saying, do you know I'm the happiest person in the world? And I said, oh, why is that? He said, because I don't have any cows. If you don't have any cows, then you've got nothing to get stressed about, have you? You don't cling on to anything, you don't get stressed. You could have 16 cows, but if you don't cling to them as mine, myself, you don't have to get stressed. The stress comes from clinging, and so the things we cling tightly to become more stressful, more suffering for us. So, what do we cling and love the most? At the same time, I'll answer ourselves, this body. Often people they talk about, oh, I love this person so much, my son, my daughter, my parent, my partner, maybe not the partner. But anyway, we say, I love this person the most, but if you've got fire, go back to fire again, you've got gas cooker or something with fire there, if your hand goes near it, it's your hand you pull away, isn't it, with the pain. You're not pulling away your partner or your loved one's hand, you pull away your own hand first because you love yourself the most. Because you're attached to yourself, aren't you? It's just common sense. This is what we cling to most, and this is what we find hardest to let go of. So we're most afraid of is death, sickness, pain, problems, discomfort, anything that's going to bring me suffering is what we don't like. It all comes from clinging. So the great teachers like Untitled Chapter or anyone else who may have come here and taught you or visited in other places, why don't they suffer? It's because they let go of this clinging to self. Unfortunately, and I went to visit him several times in his last year when he had severe illness and was in great pain, discomfort, and he knew he was going to die, as he said he was. But he never once showed any distress or mental suffering about this. And physically he was in pain, but mentally he seemed very calm, very lucid, very mindful. A very good example of a human being who's learned how not to cling to the sense of self. And the result was that he was peaceful. And the atmosphere of peace around him as he was very close to his death and in great pain was very inspiring to see. That might be just a practical example of the highest level of what human beings can do. If you really let go of this sense of self-identity with your body, your feelings, your thoughts, then you're peaceful. You've got nothing to cling to, nothing to suffer about. But it's something you have to train and work towards. You have to develop the right causes and conditions. So as I said earlier in the talk, somebody asks how can we learn to fly in our meditation? It's not going to really help you, is it? You fly, but you still have attachment to self. You're still going to suffer. You'll just be a person suffering as they fly. Better to learn to see your clinging. That's the real cause of your suffering in life. Whatever you cling to will bring you suffering. But non-clinging doesn't mean not caring, not being responsible, neglecting things. It just means understanding the nature of things. You can't own them, have them, you can't cling on to them, it's impossible. So I've talked quite a bit now, so I'll finish the talk here, just giving you some examples and sharing some experience in the practice of non-clinging for a peaceful, happy life. Maybe at the end here now, I'll finish the talk and wish you all well in your practice. May you be happy and healthy, and may you all experience the mind of non-clinging. And may this bring peace and happiness to you all. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Time for a few questions? Of course, you can.
Yeah, I think, brothers and sisters, we have time for a few questions.
I want to ask this very simple direct question. How to let go of pain or clinging to the body pain during the meditation? How to contemplate it?
That's a very good question, and I think we all have to deal with this issue. One thing I've learned through my practice is that probably in the first instance, the problem is not so much the pain much of the time, it's what we think about it. We react to it. So I can remember when I was a kid going to get vaccinations, and some of those vaccinations the doctor would bring out a really big needle, and you see it, you go, oh, and you start to sweat, and you don't like the look of it, you don't want the pain, and you know the pain is coming, so you think a lot about it, you react to it. And then I had one doctor who was quite mischievous, so he'd be talking and he'd come up close, and you know he's talking to distract you so that he can put the needle in. But he might just touch your hand first. You go, no! This little kid, 5, 6 years old or something, go, no! And he said, I haven't done anything yet. But I remember, it's the thought of the pain, the anticipation, and what you think about it. It's as much as the problem as the pain itself. Often the pain, one needle jab is not that much once you have it. Obviously there are some kinds of pain which are very deep, intense experiences, which are more challenging of course, but this is the first thing, is just to try and bring up the awareness which we learn through mindfulness training in meditation, just to pay attention to yourself in the present moment, and it's very common. You might be trying to focus on the breath, but then you have a pain in one part of the body, in the knee or the back or something, which we say distracts us, takes our attention away. But notice the first thing is, the first part of the problem is probably what you think about it. Oh, I don't want this pain, or I hate this pain, not this pain again. All the negative thoughts, you can be aware of them and see these are not anything to do with the pain itself. They're just separate mental formations coming. And try to establish that awareness, that understanding. And often that undermines those negative thoughts. They start to dissipate or subside just because you're putting mindfulness on them. The next part is to the pain itself. When you sometimes turn your attention to the painful feeling, wherever it is in the body, actually focus your mind on it. Say, okay, this painful feeling, well, what does it feel like? Where is it located? As you're meditating, your eyes might be closed and you send your mind down to that painful feeling, and you ask questions. Where is it? How intense is it? Is it like pinpointed in one spot, or is it spread over a large area? On a scale of 1 to 10, like the doctors will ask you, is it 5 or 7 or whatever? But asking questions as you meditate, so you're developing mindfulness, and then you're asking questions about this pain to yourself. It starts to make it the object of your awareness, rather than just reacting with negative thoughts. You're learning about it. And as you learn about it, most people find they start to get a new understanding over time. It might take a few occasions you practice this, but you're starting to get to know the pain better as it is, without adding any reaction, any opinion about it, nothing like that. You're just saying, what does it feel like? Where is it? You might ask, who owns this pain? Does it really belong to anybody? Or is it just a certain feeling caused by a certain set of conditions? Maybe you're sitting for a long time. All of this is investigating pain with mindfulness and wisdom to the point where you may find you can tolerate that pain, whereas before you couldn't, now you can. If it's not too intense. If it's a really serious pain because you have some illness or health condition, well, you might have to modify how you deal with it, because sometimes it's not possible to just be with that pain for very long because it's so intense. But you'll notice a lot of pain is bearable. It's just our mind reacts to it, doesn't want it, doesn't like it. And what we're doing is taking ownership of the pain and saying, oh, I don't like you, I don't want this, I want to be pain-free at this time, I don't want to be in pain. And your mind is identifying with it as a self. So it's to see if you can get to be mindful and let go of that sense of self that forms around the pain. You might not be able to get rid of the pain itself, the feeling, but we're seeing a feeling is just a feeling. If you can know it mindfully and see it, you might see it's changing. Sometimes your pain often is changing from moment to moment. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's gone. Sometimes it's intense, sometimes it's very light, very gentle. There's gentle pain, soft pain. You're learning about it, you're seeing it as impermanent, you're seeing it as not really a self, it's just a feeling. So the Buddha said, mindfulness, get to the point where you see feeling as just feeling. And the more you do that, the better you get at it. So then it's like feeling, it's like this, it's painful, but it's just feeling, and you don't have to grasp at it or cling to it with a sense of self.
How do we deal with injustices that happen in our life, such as bullying, workplace abuses by superiors, and people who try to implicate us in court over things that we don't do?
Well, patience is a good starting point. Start with patience, because if somebody provokes us, bullies us, our first reaction will tend to be one of anger, ill will. And if we act or speak in anger, often it makes it worse. So try to be patient with the situation. It doesn't mean to say be weak or give up. What it means is take the time to be patient with it and learn from that situation and look at it closely. Is there anything I am doing that is making it worse? Am I provoking the person? Am I at fault in the situation? And look at them. What are they doing? Why are they doing this? Is there some reason? You can investigate and start to find out where they're coming from. Why do they do this? Sometimes you find out. Sometimes you still don't know why it's happening. It depends on the situation. But with patience and then mindfully investigating the situation for yourself, just quietly thinking it over, looking at it, you also can be creative. Is there any other approach I can bring to this situation to get a good resolution without having to go to the extreme of fighting them in court or some kind of procedural battle over your job? Is there any way I can deal with this differently? At least explore those avenues. Some situations in the end, perhaps the only solution is leave. Of course, that's also an option, and it does happen like that. Just all you can do is say, the karma of this situation is such, there's nothing I can do, I can't improve the situation, I can't change the person, I'll just leave. Sometimes. Other times you can find some better solution without leaving, some kind of understanding, some kind of mediated, negotiated settlement or improved situation. Depends on the situation. So I can't really give you one simple answer, but patience and then closely looking at it to see if you can understand the situation better, more deeply, to see if you can find a solution.
Got time for one last question.
How could you tell that sometimes when we're thinking a lot about fixing a situation, like how could you tell between you're being conscientious and being active, trying to improve the situation, and when does it veer into like clinging and something that's not no longer productive? Like I just want to check those balance, that you're not being like so fatalistic and just like hopeless versus being productive.
Well, sometimes it takes time. We don't always have a quick solution or a quick answer to every situation. But if you, as like the last question, you begin from patience as your starting point, and then you can look to learn from the situation, what's going on, what's my role in it, what's other people's role. And your main aim is not to be creating suffering for yourself or others in what you do, even what you think. So if someone else is causing suffering for you, well, that's a cause for concern. You see what you can do to address that. And if they continue to do that, especially if there's someone in a position of authority or something like that, then, as I said, sometimes all you can do is leave the situation behind. There's no resolution. Sometimes it's like that. Other times you fall back on, you're sure you're doing the right thing. You keep watching yourself, but you're sure you're doing the right thing, you're not harming anyone. And you might feel strong enough, resilient enough just to keep going. And as it were, push through whatever they throw at you, whatever comes your way, to the point where it all finishes. You've gone through it, it's finished and you moved on. And you didn't have to leave, you didn't have to do anything extreme. You just waited. You were careful with what you said and that did, and you got through it. Sometimes you can win, as it were, like that. Every situation is different, but your number one aim is not to create unnecessary suffering for yourself or others. And that kind of gives you guidelines as you go through different situations. you might notice maybe you are doing something wrong or something that causes suffering that you didn't see before, but only over time has come to light that, oh, I made a mistake. Sometimes you have to be honest. Other times, absolutely sure you've done nothing wrong. It really is something out of your control, another person or a wider situation that you can't control. And you either have to be patient and stick with it or move on and change and get out of that situation. No simple answer, but you're here to reduce your suffering and other people's suffering, not to increase it. So that's a good guideline in what you're doing.
Okay, that the end of the night session. So if you've got more questions, you may join us in tomorrow's session, 7:30 p.m. at NDR. So before we end, just say 3 sadhus and thanks for Ajahns talk tonight. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
We'd just like to give you all a blessing. So, just chant a blessing for your good health and happiness, and may the good karma you've made tonight, practicing meditation, listening to the Dhamma, may this be a cause for your progress in understanding the path to peace and happiness. Yathawariva apura paripuranti sagaran Ewa mewa ito tinan petamanu pakapati Ichitam patitam tumham kipamewa samijatu sabbe purantu sankapa Janto panaraso yatha manicho jiraso yatha sabitiyo vivajanto Saparoko vinasato mate pavatmantarayo sukhiti kayuko bhava Abhivatana siddhalicha buddha pachayino chataro dhamma vadanti ayuvano sukham palan bhavatu sammangalam rakantu sampati vata Sabba buddha nupavena sabba dhamma nupavena sabba sankha